اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، بارئ الخلائق أجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الخلق وأعز المرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين، سيما بقية الله روحي وأرواح العالمين له الفداء. مؤمنين ومؤمنات, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Congratulations on the arrival of the month of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. In numerous hadith we are told that the Prophet said, "This is my month and help me in this month." Help him by being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, obedient to God, obedient through the teachings of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and not only doing what is obligatory but also doing recommended acts of kindness and generosity, as well as fasting and extra prayers. Fasting in this month is very, very in fact special. In the dua or salawat that is recommended, which is recommended every day in this month at noon, in there we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to fast and pray on this in this month and follow the sunnah, the tradition of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. And we also ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to share some of which He has given us from His grace with those whom He has deprived as a test. It's a beautiful part of this dua that Allah, the Imams teach us to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we help those whom He has given little. قَتَّرْتَ عَلَيْهِ مِنْ رِزْقِكَ بِمَا وَسَّعْتَ عَلَيَّ مِنْ فَضْلِكَ. Help me, help those. Grant me the guidance and the opportunity to help those whom you have made their sustenance limited. It is God who chooses to test some with limiting their sustenance, giving them barely what they need, always living, pay to pay, paycheck to paycheck, as they say, barely able to make ends meet. And some others He tests them by giving them more, and this is part of the test, and this is in fact the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to help. He taught us to help, and He reminded us, He acted that by His own example, and Him and His family constantly reminded us to help others. And this is His month, therefore let us help Him, help ourselves, and help Him help us, and do the right thing, help others, and also don't forget to do some extra prayers and some extra fasting during this month, at least few days. If we can't do a lot, a few is better than nothing. The most important thing is the last day of the month, to connect it with the month of Ramadan. Fasting the last day is very, very recommended, in fact, to connect it to the month of Ramadan. Obviously the intention should not be anything other than mustahab. We don't have this doubt thing. Either it's confirmed the beginning of the month, so we fast as the month of Ramadan. If not, we fast as a recommended fast of the last day of the month of Sha'ban. Inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grants us the opportunity to gain some blessings and special forgiveness in this month, so that we enter the month of Ramadan as pure as we can, so that we can benefit the most through the month of Ramadan, inshallah. One of the most beautiful things that occurred in this month, earlier in fact in this month, is the birth of three of the most renowned heroes of Karbala. In fact, the first one is Imam Hussein alayhi salam, who was born on the 3rd of Sha'ban and brought so much light and pleasure to the house of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the house of Amirul Mu'mineen and Fatimatu Zahra, the household of Rasulullah, to the Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala. That inshallah we will celebrate and talk about tomorrow night. Also on the 5th of Sha'ban is the birth of Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam, who became in fact the voice of Imam Hussein after Ashura, after the day of Ashura, after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Imam Zainul Abidin alayhi salam is the one who carried on the message. He was unwell and therefore could not fight on the day of Ashura. Perhaps the decree of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was that he survives that day and continues on the mission of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam and the mission of his father Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Also on the 4th of this month is the birth of Abul Fadl al-Abbas salamullah alayh, and inshallah tonight I want us to speak about this personality. Inshallah we'll dedicate tomorrow night and tomorrow night to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and Imam Zain al-Abidin alayhi salam, as it is closer to their date. Nonetheless, I wanted to utilize this night and speak about this important personality, and I also wanted to bring up something very important that we should reflect on and understand, and perhaps that way we can benefit more from these personalities, these individuals, these heroes. If it wasn't for the significance of the character, the immaculate character of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, if he was not there to cast shadow on everybody else around him, Abul Fadl al-Abbas would in fact be on his own one of the most significant characters of the history of mankind. No doubt. Similar to the son of Imam Hussein alayhi salam that did not survive the day of Ashura and was not the Imam, yet in every ziyarah that we recite, ziyarat Ashura, we give him a special salute and salam, who is the son of Imam Hussein, Ali ibn al-Hussein al-Akbar, known as Ali al-Akbar, Ali the great or the first, in other words, who in fact, again, on his own, if it wasn't for the basically the significance and the distinction that Imam Hussein alayhi salam had above all, he himself would have also become so famous and known for his heroism and for his knowledge, for his piety, for his character. If we study their words and study their life and what they did in their lives, in fact, we will realize that they cannot compare to most people who throughout the history we talk about. For instance, if today we have great scholars or great individuals who sacrificed for humanity, sacrificed for Islam, for the religion, sacrificed for the goodness of the people and for people to learn the right religion and to follow the right path. We read about them throughout the history, throughout the centuries. We have individuals. If you look at what they have done and compare it to what, for example, Ali al-Akbar salamullah alayhi had done, you will find that there is no comparison. If we look at any character in the history of mankind and try and compare them with Abul Fadl al-Abbas salamullah alayhi, And this is not, again, there is one thing that I try to always focus on and make it my way of presenting things. I don't present anything that is not logical. I don't present anything, I don't say it if I cannot logically prove it, not just by some literature or poetry that we've written or we've read and we share with one another. If you look at really what happened and what these individuals did and compare it and bring literature, and we've discussed this with many people in interfaith gatherings and so on, intra or interfaith gatherings. We've discussed this very fact that, for example, I've mentioned, look at, for instance, the words of wisdom of Imam Ali alayhi salam and compare it to any character besides Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam throughout the history. In terms of the abundance, the number, basically both quantity and quality, you'll find no comparison. Look at this character of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas salamullah alayhi and what historians wrote about him and what he did throughout his life, and especially throughout the journey, the most significant journey all the way from leaving Medina until martyrdom in the land of Karbala. If you look at what is written about him, mind you, what we have today, historical records, are written by the people who witnessed and were in the army of the enemy, mostly. Though we do have some things that are written by Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim ajma'een. The Imams of Ahlul Bayt are the ones who confirm. When they say it, it's confirmed. However, most of what occurred throughout the journey and on the day of Ashura, in fact, throughout the journey, it's mixed in terms of narrators and so on. But on the day of Ashura, most of what we have is from the camp of the enemy of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Umar ibn Sa'd la'natullah alayhi, and his people, his army. Yet, when you read what they've written about Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, you will be puzzled. And you would wonder, why would they do what they did to him and obviously to Imam Hussein alayhi salam and to the rest, knowing what they know and describing them the way they described them. Perhaps you could say, and we could basically through the writings of historians, will find that the ones who wrote may have not gotten fully involved, in the sense that they were there with the army of the enemy. In a sense, they did support, at least they added numbers to the army of the enemy. Nonetheless, they did not participate physically or fully in the battle or in the combat. What we have, for example, and tonight I want to give one example, and there are many things, but this example is extreme in the character of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, which makes us remember him again and again, year after year, and his memory and fame grows bigger every year throughout the world, is because of a trait, a characteristic in him that reached the peak, unmatched. You hardly can find anything like that, besides perhaps prophets and infallible figures. You would not find figures doing anything like that. The trait or the characteristic of sacrifice. In fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Holy Quran tells us, if we want to reach righteousness and the status of the righteous ones, al-birr, we have to be able to sacrifice. Sacrifice is not to give from what you can spare. Please, let's understand this. Acts of charity are not always sacrifice. Acts of charity could be generosity. But it's sacrifice when it is going to hurt you and you prefer that you hurt over somebody else hurting. whether it be financial or physical or any other shape or form. This is sacrifice. Meaning you put others before you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals Quran in the same ayat that I used, the bir, al-abrar, the righteous ones, if we want to be amongst them. He reveals ayat of the Holy Quran because of the sacrifice of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning Imam Ali alayhi salam, his wife Fatima Zahra salamullah alayha, Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein alayhim salam. Read his story, the tafsir of the ayat of Surah Al-Dahr or Surah Al-Insan, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. Who was this revealed about? And you'll find that it had to do, and again, tafsir of Sunni and Shia. By and large, the tafsir of this ayah is clear that it is about the sacrifice of this family, this purified household, when they put the poor and the orphan and the stranded or the prisoner before themselves. They fed them and kept their own children hungry. I've said it before. To keep hungry and feed someone else, one could, let's say a number of people would do it. Not many, but a number of people would do it. That he's hungry, another person is hungry, and you give your food and stay hungry. And I'm speaking about a situation where you have to choose to sleep hungry versus not that you give your food and go to the shop and get another, meal or something, or you give it knowing that you're going to sleep hungry. A number of people would do it. You give it knowing that your children are going to sleep hungry. How many people would do it? I doubt it. I don't think I have it in me. In fact, I don't believe I have it in me. Unless, again, I'm trying to mimic those individuals, copy those individuals, and do something which hurts so much, but I do it just so that I say I did this. Otherwise, naturally, who would do this? And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals Quran about them. When they put others before themselves. And I've said it before, when you want to give charity, if you want it to be considered not just an act of kindness and charity, but an act of sacrifice, it has to put you in difficult position. Somebody else in a difficult position, you're in a difficult position, you have to put them before you. Help them to the point that you're struggling. How many people? How many people want to be amongst the abrar? This is the question. Ask yourself, do I want to gain this title, this very special badge, if you want, that God has kept for a certain people, the people who are willing to sacrifice, put others before themselves. Abul Fadl al-Abbas salamullah alayh displayed a very unique example of sacrifice on the day of Ashura. Very unique. The enemy narrated it. Historians mentioned it, even to the point that they mentioned what he said at that point. They mentioned the words that he said at that point as he made that act of sacrifice, which is what? The day of Ashura came after 3 days of blocking water on the camp of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. On the 7th, it is narrated that the order came from Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad la'natullah alayh, that you have to Umar ibn Sa'd again la'natullah alayh. When we say la'natullah, people get all confused. Go read the Quran. When we have la'an from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on Fir'aun and the likes, we have an individual who's standing there saying, I know you're the grandson of the Prophet and I'm going to kill you, and I know that you're the master of youth in paradise and I'm going to kill you. And we say, no, let's not do la'an. Let's be real. In any case, The command came, block the water on the 7th day. So now 3 days have passed. Water has finished. They have to themselves, their horses and so on, the wudu and so on, cooking, everything, that water had finished, and they are all thirsty. Thirsty to the point that on that night every child was crying. Now you can imagine how long had it been that there was no water at all. Because if on the 9th night, the night of the day of Ashura, if on that night the children were thirsty, crying, asking for water, as narrators say, on the 9th, the day before, the 9th day, I'm sure the elders sacrificed their water for the children. So now it's already the 2nd day at least that they have absolutely no water. And that part of the world is not easy. I guess in Florida we can somehow relate, but not as much, because it is not dry heat that we get here. We get some humidity. They get dry heat. So in the dry heat of the days there, no water, and the next day they have been in fact fighting almost the entire day. Although some people have got it wrong to say Abu al-Fadl did not fight until and the Imam Hussein alayhi salam was keeping him. That is not accurate. The truth is, the Imam from the morning set them up into right wing and left wing to protect the children and the family, and all of them went out and fought. He did not go into one-on-one combat or in a position where he would, in fact, he knows that this is martyrdom. Yes, this is true. But in terms of having gone out and fought, he had fought the entire day. And he had worked the entire day. Every time somebody would get wounded or martyred, they would go out and bring him and so on. And he was there for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, the way Imam Ali alayhi salam was for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his right hand, anything he needed. Now after all this, he hears the children crying for water. There is no water. And I don't want to recite majlis. I want to display the image and I want to basically put that complete picture, draw that complete picture to understand what he did to gain the title of Abrar, the real Abrar. What he did to be there with Imam Hussein alayhi salam. If you look at the land of Karbala, they have measured, it's almost like Safa and Marwa, Imam Hussein and Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas. Such a status he gained. People go to Imam Hussein alayhi salam, they have to visit a special ziyarah to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, a special ziyarah to Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas taught by the Imams of Ahlul Bayt salawatullah wa salamu alayhim, and the ahadith that the Imams of Ahlul Bayt said about him. On that day, he goes out now to get water for the children, knowing that at the river bank, to block the water, they had an army. Narrators, historians say there were 4,000 people. They had lined them up basically at the river bank so that nobody can approach the river. This is how they blocked the water from Imam Hussein alayhi salam and his camp. So now he's going there all alone, and Imam Hussein alayhi salam is by the camp with the children, with the ladies. They had nobody else to protect them, and watching. And he's got the banner going there. How much fighting would he have done to go through an army that is ordered, commanded not to let anyone get to the water, and 4,000 of them are on the riverbank? I'm not saying he fought all of them. But to pierce through them, how much did he have to fight? Wounds, arrows, you name it. Now with the wounds that he has, the arrows that he has in his body, with the fact that he has been thirsty for all that time, and he gets to the river. He fills the skin, wants to get some water. They say he carried the water, salamullah alayhi. Touches the water, feels the coolness of the water. Imagine what he had been through all day and the day before, and now you feel the coolness of the water. What's the natural reaction of anyone? Let's be real. And yet he throws the water on the water and he says, how dare you, speaking to himself, Ya nafs min ba'd al-Husayn huni. How dare you drink when your master, the grandson of the Prophet Hussein, salamullah alayhi, is thirsty? He says, this is not my type, my style. This is Abul Fadl al-Abbas. This is the sacrifice. His master is thirsty and he's drinking, he would not do that. Why? Because he knows this is Sayyid Shabab Ahl al-Jannah, master of youth in paradise. If he's thirsty, he cannot drink, I have the access, I would rather not drink. And if that means that I die thirsty, I would do that. This is the sacrifice of Abul Fadl al-Abbas, salamullah alayhi. If we want to look for role models, we have them there. The question is, how much are we willing to sacrifice? If you're not willing to sacrifice to that point, if you're not willing to sacrifice to the degree that you feed others and keep your children hungry, sacrifice a little bit. Let's be a little like them. If we can't be fully exactly like them, let's be a little like those individuals. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the opportunity to follow them, to learn from them, to visit them, and grant us their intercession in the hereafter, the intercession of them and their grandfather Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. In the hereafter, we ask him to make us amongst those who listen to what's said and follow what's best. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa sallallahu wa sallam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyyina Muhammad wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There was a request for Amma Yujib. I was told someone is unwell and requested, or someone's father in fact is unwell, requested us to recite the ayah of the desperate ones, the ones who are desperate. Amma yujibul muttar. Inshallah, we'll recite the ayah and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant this person speedy and quick recovery. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Amma yujibul muttar idha da'ahu wa yakshifu as-su'. أمن يجيب المضطر إذا دعاه ويكشف السوء 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 إلهي يا مجيب المضطر يا الله يا كاشف السوء يا الله اكشف عنا سوءنا بفرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان شاف مرضانا شاف المريض المنظور ارحم موتانا بحرمة السورة المباركة الفاتحة تحفها صلوات اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. بسم الله الرحمن